In a rapidly changing political landscape, President Donald Trump's second term is marked by aggressive reshaping of federal institutions, stirring both controversy and concern. The latest developments highlight a significant reduction in government resources, a controversial appointment to the Secretary of State position, and the evolving role of tech magnate Elon Musk in the administration. During an interview with Fox News' Bret Baier, Trump addressed the ongoing role of Elon Musk, who has been appointed to lead the Department of Government Efficiency (DOGE). Trump remarked that Musk is not gaining anything from his involvement in the department, questioning how the billionaire could dedicate his time to such a role amid his other commitments. "In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it," Trump stated, indicating a level of skepticism regarding Musk's influence within the government. The president announced that Musk would soon turn his focus toward the Department of Education alongside his ongoing investigations into agency waste, further extending Musk's reach into federal operations. This restructuring initiative comes amidst a broader push to downsize and streamline federal agencies. Recently, Trump indicated plans to slash the workforce of the U.S. Agency for International Development (USAID) from 14,000 to just 300 employees, a radical move that has raised alarms among humanitarian organizations reliant on U.S. funding. Aid leaders expressed grave concerns about the implications for global humanitarian efforts, noting that critical food supplies intended for impoverished nations could go to waste due to interrupted funding and logistical support. Despite assurances from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, many in the aid community remain uncertain about the future of U.S.-backed humanitarian initiatives. In a related development, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau (CFPB) experienced a shutdown of its operations as Musk's DOGE assumed control. Russell Vought, the newly appointed director of the Office of Management and Budget and acting head of the CFPB, ordered staff to cease all supervisory activities, raising questions about consumer protections at a time when many Americans are still recovering from economic fallout exacerbated by the pandemic. Vaught's directive to halt funding and operations effectively dismantles the oversight capabilities of an agency that had returned nearly $21 billion to consumers since its inception after the 2008 financial crisis. Amidst these sweeping changes, Marco Rubio's confirmation as Secretary of State has drawn attention not only for his policy stances but also for the dynamics of his relationship with Trump. Once a vocal critic of the former President, Rubio's ascension to this prominent role has been interpreted by some as a strategic move by Trump to assert control over Republican leadership. Former RNC Chair Michael Steele suggested that Trump's selection of Rubio serves to punk him, forcing him to abandon his previously held beliefs about governance and foreign policy. Rubio's recent statements reflect a commitment to a hardline approach toward adversaries like China and Russia, contrasting sharply with Trump's past criticisms of alliances such as NATO. As the second term unfolds, Trump's administration continues to navigate internal and external challenges. From contentious policy decisions to the ramifications of Musk's involvement in federal governance. With the Super Bowl on the horizon, Trump is balancing his political agenda with personal leisure, having recently been seen golfing with Tiger Woods. Yet the administration's focus remains on the contentious political landscape as they prepare for potential backlash from both Democrats and disenchanted Republicans. Looking forward, the implications of these developments could reshape American governance and its role on the global stage. The actions taken by Trump and his administration will likely fuel ongoing debates about the size and function of government, the relationship between technology and regulation, and the future of U.S. foreign policy as it increasingly intertwines with partisan politics. As the new administration continues to evolve, all eyes will be on how these sweeping changes play out in practice and what they mean for the American populace and global allies alike. In a move that has sparked significant attention and debate, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared a video on social media documenting the arrival of a group of migrants at Naval Station Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing discourse surrounding immigration policy and national security, as Hegseth stated that these were the first high-threat criminal migrants to be relocated from the United States to the base. The video, which shows several individuals with obscured faces shackled and being escorted from a military plane, underscores the gravity of this decision. The flight, which originated from El Paso, Texas, carried 13 migrants with alleged criminal backgrounds, a detail that remains vague regarding the specific offenses attributed to them. The Defense Secretary's announcement coincides with a memorandum from former President Donald Trump, which directed federal agencies to prepare Guantanamo Bay for the potential housing of tens of thousands of migrants. Historically, the facility has been primarily used for migrants intercepted at sea, making this latest development noteworthy. This is a necessary step to ensure the safety and security of our nation, Hegseth remarked, emphasizing the administration's commitment to addressing what it perceives as a growing threat posed by undocumented individuals with criminal histories. The implications of this policy shift extend beyond the immediate relocation of these migrants. It reflects a broader strategy that seeks to tighten immigration controls and reinforce national security measures, particularly in the wake of rising tensions surrounding border security. While the Department of Defense has not disclosed the specific crimes committed by the migrants, the decision has prompted questions about the administration's overall approach to immigration enforcement and the treatment of migrants in the U.S. Critics have voiced concerns that such actions could further stigmatize vulnerable populations and exacerbate existing tensions within immigrant communities. This latest development is part of a series of contentious policies and statements from the Trump administration, which has consistently aimed to reshape immigration laws and enforcement practices. Hegseth's leadership in the Pentagon is also noteworthy, as it comes amid his recent confirmation hearings where he faced scrutiny over various allegations. Nonetheless, he has positioned himself as a staunch defender of the administration's policies and rhetoric, often framing them as essential to national security. As the Biden administration grapples with the ramifications of these policies, the future of U.S. immigration law continues to hang in the balance. With ongoing debates in Congress and feedback from various stakeholders, including advocacy groups and legal experts, the next steps will be critical in determining the trajectory of U.S. immigration policy. In conclusion, the relocation of migrants to Guantanamo Bay represents a significant shift in the administration's approach to immigration and national security. As developments unfold, stakeholders will be watching closely to see how this decision influences public perception, legal challenges, and future policy adjustments. The intersection of immigration, criminal justice, and national security remains a hotbed of contention, and future developments are likely to provoke further discussion and debate across the political spectrum. As the political landscape in the United States continues to shift dramatically, the nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services (HHS) has ignited a fervent debate that underscores the intersection of health policy and political ideology. With his controversial views on vaccines and modern medicine, Kennedy's impending confirmation has left many Americans both hopeful and apprehensive. During his recent confirmation hearing before the Senate Finance Committee, Kennedy showcased his comprehensive wellness agenda dubbed "Make America Healthy Again," which resonated strongly with a segment of Americans dissatisfied with traditional healthcare. Supporters like Hilda Labrada Gore, a fitness coach and advocate for alternative health practices, expressed their enthusiasm, stating, "We are looking to pills and prescriptions programs and physicians for good health when actually it can be found through much simpler ancestral health ways." This sentiment is echoed by others who have distanced themselves from conventional medicine in favor of holistic approaches, often at odds with established public health guidelines. However, Kennedy's nomination has not come without significant opposition. His history of vaccine skepticism, which includes promoting discredited theories linking vaccines to autism, has alarmed public health advocates and clinicians alike. Senator Bill Cassidy, a physician who chairs the committee overseeing HHS, articulated his fears during the hearing, saying he struggled to support Kennedy due to concerns that vaccine policies under his leadership could lead to preventable diseases. Cassidy nonetheless ultimately voted to advance Kennedy's nomination, citing assurances Kennedy made regarding his commitment to uphold the CDC's immunization schedules. The stark divide in public opinion surrounding vaccines is illustrated by the rise of a movement that blends alternative health practices with conservative values. Many within this group view vaccines with skepticism, believing in the superiority of natural immunity and traditional health practices. Amy Fuel, a rural Virginia resident and homesteader, reflected this perspective, expressing discomfort with Kennedy's statements that seem to endorse vaccine safety based on scientific consensus. "I still want the option to say no to it. We just don't believe that's God's design for our life," she stated, highlighting the deep-rooted beliefs that fuel the anti-vaccine sentiment among certain demographics. Kennedy's supporters, including figures from the supplement and natural health industries, are hopeful that his confirmation would mark a significant shift in how these sectors are perceived and supported by the federal government. Karen Howard, executive director of the Organic and Natural Health Association, pointed out that no previous administration has openly backed their interests, making Kennedy's nomination a pivotal moment for advocates of nutraceuticals and alternative health approaches. As the Senate prepares for a vote on Kennedy's nomination, the political maneuvering continues. Republican leaders eager to demonstrate loyalty to former President Donald Trump appear willing to overlook the nominee's controversial past in favor of expediency. This willingness to align with Trump's unconventional choices reflects a broader trend within the GOP, where party loyalty is increasingly prioritized over independent judgment. Yet the potential implications of Kennedy's confirmation are profound. With HHS overseeing a vast array of health-related programs and an annual budget of approximately $1.8 trillion, Kennedy's approach to public health could reshape everything from vaccine policy to the regulation of supplements and alternative therapies. Critics warned that his leadership could exacerbate vaccine hesitancy, potentially leading to public health crises reminiscent of pre-vaccine eras. The stakes are high not just for Kennedy's nomination but for the future of public health in the United States. Activists like Olga Irwin, who rely on Medicaid for their healthcare needs, expressed deep concern about the ramifications of Kennedy's past comments on public health programs and vaccines. "I'm picturing my death," she said, emphasizing the urgency and fears surrounding the potential loss of healthcare access. As the Senate nears a decision, the outcome of Kennedy's nomination will likely reverberate throughout the healthcare landscape, influencing public trust in health institutions and determining the future trajectory of health policy in America. With the confirmation process nearing its climax, the interplay of health politics and personal beliefs will undoubtedly shape the narrative in the days to come. In a decisive shift in the leadership of the U.S. Department of Justice, Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced her commitment to refocusing the agency on its primary mandate of prosecuting violent crime. In her first interview since her confirmation, Bondi declared that the era of what she termed the weaponization of the government would cease under President Trump's administration. This statement has already sparked considerable discussion regarding the implications for both law enforcement priorities and the political landscape in the United States. Bondi, who was confirmed by the Senate with a vote of 54 to 46, emphasized the need for the DOJ to redirect its resources towards combating violent crime, drug trafficking, and gang activities. "It's the end of the weaponization of government and getting back to prosecuting violent crime and giving our great men and women the tools that they need in law enforcement," she told Fox News host Sean Hannity. This pledge comes after what Bondi and many of her supporters perceive as a misallocation of resources during the Biden administration, which they argue became overly focused on investigating Trump and his associates rather than addressing pressing crime issues. Critics, particularly from the Democratic side, have raised concerns about Bondi's past, including her representation of Trump's campaign and legal challenges following the 2020 election. They also questioned her involvement in the dismissals of FBI officials and the potential impact on experienced leadership within the DOJ. However, Senate Majority Leader John Thune defended Bondi's nomination, asserting that the American people should trust the DOJ to operate without political bias. He highlighted her history of tackling the opioid crisis in Florida as indicative of her capability to handle national crime issues effectively. In her new role, Bondi has signaled a significant change in operational approach. specifically concerning the use of special counsels. She asserted that any future appointments would be legally appointed and not as frequent as under previous administrations. This shift is particularly notable given the controversies surrounding special counsels during the Trump presidency, including the investigation led by former Attorney General Merrick Garland into alleged misconduct by Trump. Additionally, Bondi has been ordered by the president to establish a task force aimed at investigating what Trump has described as anti-Christian bias within the government. This directive reflects a broader agenda of addressing perceived discrimination against religious groups, a theme that has resonated with Trump's base and is likely to impact the DOJ's focus moving forward. As Bondi embarks on her tenure, the implications of her policies and the DOJ's renewed focus on violent crime will be closely monitored. Law enforcement agencies are anticipated to receive increased support. While the political ramifications of her approach may further polarize an already divided Congress. With crime rates and public safety remaining pivotal issues for many Americans, the administration's strategy under Bondi's leadership will be critical in shaping both policy and public perception in the months ahead. As the DOJ pivots towards its core functions, the coming weeks will reveal how these promised changes will manifest in practice and their potential impact on the broader judicial landscape. In a significant development for the U.S. financial landscape, the Senate has confirmed Scott Bessent as the new Secretary of the Treasury with a decisive vote of 68 to 29. Bessent, who succeeds Janet Yellen, assumes office during a critical period as the nation grapples with the impending statutory debt ceiling, which poses the risk of defaulting on its obligations if not addressed promptly. Bessent's confirmation is not merely a procedural formality, it comes at a time when the Treasury must navigate the complexities of fiscal management under the scrutiny of a divided government. President Donald Trump, who nominated Bessent, has made clear his intention to repeal the debt ceiling entirely, arguing that such a move would enhance the country's financial flexibility. During his confirmation hearings, Bessent echoed this sentiment, assuring senators, "The U.S. is not going to default on its debt if I'm confirmed," highlighting his readiness to collaborate with the administration to secure a favorable outcome for the nation's fiscal health. Bessent brings a wealth of experience from the private sector, having served as an investor and hedge fund manager, but his political background is limited. His notable contributions to Trump's fundraising efforts, which reportedly exceed $50 million, have positioned him as a key ally in the administration's economic strategy. Trump has lauded Bessent's potential to bolster the U.S. dollar and reduce national debt, emphasizing the need for policies that prioritize economic growth and competitiveness. "Scott will support my policies that will drive U.S. competitiveness and stop unfair trade imbalances," Trump stated upon Bessent's nomination. However, Bessent's tenure is already facing challenges. A federal court ruling issued by Judge Paul Engelmayer has imposed restrictions on political appointees, including Bessent, from accessing Treasury Department data as part of the Trump administration's initiative known as the Department of Government Efficiency (DOGE). This decision has sparked controversy, particularly among Trump's supporters, who argue that it undermines the elected government's ability to oversee federal finances. Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative commentator, criticized the ruling as an affront to governmental authority, suggesting that it effectively relegates Bessent to a ceremonial position devoid of real power. In the wake of this ruling, Bessent attempted to clarify the role of Treasury employees involved in DOGE, asserting that they possess only read-only access to data and cannot alter the system. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, who leads the DOGE initiative, outlined plans to enhance transparency in government payments, advocating for better categorization and justification of expenditures. Musk's comments underscore a broader concern about potential inefficiencies and fraud in federal spending, with estimates suggesting that as much as $50 billion annually could be attributed to fraudulent claims. As Bessent settles into his role, the path ahead remains fraught with challenges, particularly as the Treasury confronts the dual pressures of managing the national debt and adhering to judicial constraints on data access. His effectiveness in this position will likely depend on his ability to navigate these complexities while fostering cooperation between the executive branch and Congress. Looking ahead, the implications of Besant's leadership will extend beyond immediate fiscal concerns. The ongoing debates about the debt ceiling and government efficiency will shape the economic landscape for years to come, making Besant's tenure a pivotal moment in U.S. financial governance. As the country moves forward, it remains to be seen how Besant will leverage his position to influence policy and address the pressing issues at hand. In a striking move that could significantly impact the U.S. energy sector, Howard Lutnick, President Donald Trump's nominee for Commerce Secretary, has voiced strong concerns over the European Union's EU environmental, social and governance (ESG) regulations. These new mandates, particularly the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive (CSDDD), have been criticized for imposing onerous compliance requirements on American companies operating in Europe. Lutnick argues that such regulations threaten U.S. energy producers at a time when Europe is heavily reliant on American natural gas and oil to meet its energy demands. The backdrop to Lutnick's comments is a growing trend among American and European financial institutions that have begun to withdraw from international alliances promoting ESG principles. This shift is largely in response to the rising costs and complexities associated with adhering to these standards, a sentiment that seems to have escaped the attention of EU officials. As Lutnick pointed out in his testimony to the Senate Commerce Committee, the CSDDD could impose significant financial burdens on thousands of U.S. companies, exacerbating their difficulties in accessing European markets. The EU's regulatory framework is encapsulated in its ambitious Green Deal package, which includes several directives mandating extensive disclosures around sustainability metrics and supply chain diligence. The CSDDD in particular has raised alarms due to its implications for investment flows and capital allocation, as it dictates what qualifies as a sustainable economic activity. Lutnick emphasized that these regulations could stifle innovation and hinder the U.S.'s ability to export vital energy supplies to Europe, especially as the continent seeks to reduce its dependency on Russian energy sources. Lutnick's remarks echo a broader critique of the EU's approach to energy and environmental policy. He highlighted the contradiction in the EU's desire for U.S. energy while simultaneously imposing stringent regulations that complicate trade and investment. As Lutnick stated, the EU is attempting to harm the competitive advantages of U.S. companies by forcing them to comply with CS3D, emphasizing the paradox of needing American energy while burdening U.S. producers with excessive regulatory hurdles. The Biden administration had previously downplayed the potential repercussions of these regulations, despite warnings from figures like former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen about their unintended negative consequences. However, under Trump's renewed leadership, there appears to be a shift toward a more aggressive stance against these EU mandates. Lutnick has indicated that the Commerce Department will consider employing various trade tools to counter the EU's regulatory overreach, a commitment that resonates with Trump's broader economic strategy. The situation is further complicated by the rising dissatisfaction among EU member states regarding the current regulatory framework. Recently, prominent figures such as German Finance Minister Georg Kukis and French officials have called for a regulatory pause to reassess the impact of the EU's stringent sustainability reporting requirements. This growing pushback suggests a potential softening of the EU's hardline stance on ESG regulations as member states grapple with the economic realities of energy security amid rising costs and supply chain challenges. As the Trump administration navigates this complex landscape, it faces a unique opportunity to reshape US-EU trade relations and ensure that American energy producers are not unduly hindered by foreign regulations. The coming months will likely reveal whether Lutnick and the administration can effectively advocate for American interests while balancing the EU's environmental ambitions. In conclusion, the interplay between U.S. energy policy and EU regulations will remain a focal point in the evolving landscape of international trade. As Lutnick and Trump seek to protect American businesses, the question remains, will the EU adjust its regulatory framework to accommodate the realities of energy dependence, or will it continue to pursue its ambitious sustainability goals at the expense of transatlantic cooperation? The answer could shape the future of US-European relations and the global energy market.